and fire and idols and such, and Dravot leads the priest of each village up to the idol and says he must sit there and judge the people, and if anything goes wrong he is to be shot. Next week they was all turning up the land in the valley as quiet as bees and much prettier, and the priest heard all the complaints and told Dravot in dumb show what it was about. 'That's just the beginning,' says Dravot. 'They think we're gods.' He and Carnehan picks out 20 good men and shows them how to click off a rifle and form fours and advance in line, and they was very pleased to do so, and clever to see the hang of it. Then he takes out his pipe and his baccy pouch, and leaves one at one village and one at the other, and off we two goes to see what was to be done in the next valley. That was all rock, and there was a little village there, and Carnehan says send 'em to the old valley to plant, and takes 'em there and gives them some land that wasn't took before. They were a poor lot, and we blooded 'em with a kid before letting 'em into the new kingdom. That was to impress the people, and they settled down quiet, and Carnehan went back to Dravot, who had got into another valley, all snow and ice and most mountainous. There was no people there, and the army got afraid, so Dravot shoots one of 'em and goes on till he finds some people in a village, and the army explains that unless the people wants to be killed they had better not shoot their little matchlocks, for they had matchlocks. We makes friends with the priest, and I stays there alone with 2 of the army teaching the men how to drill, and a thundering big chief comes across the snow with kettle drums and horns twanging because he heard there was a new god kicking about. Carnehan sights for the Brown and the men half a mile across the snow and wings one of them. Then he sends a message to the chief that unless he wished to be killed he must come and shake hands with me and leave his arms behind. The chief comes alone first, and Carnehan shakes hands with him and whirls his arms about, same as Dravot used, and very much surprised that chief was, and strokes my eyebrows. Then Carnehan goes alone to the chief and asks him in dumb show if he had an enemy he hated. 'I have,' says the chief. So Carnehan weeds out the pick of his men and sets the 2 of the army to show them drill, and at the end of 2 weeks the men can manoeuvre about as well as volunteers. So he marches with the chief to a great big plain on the top of a mountain, and the chief's men rushes into a village and takes it, we 3 Martinis firing into the brown of the enemy. So we took that village too, and I gives the chief a rag from my coat and says, 'Occupy till I come,' which was scriptural. By way of a reminder, when me and the army was 1800 yards away, I drops a bullet near him standing on the snow, and all the people falls flat on their faces. Then I sends a letter to Dravot, wherever he be, by land or by sea." At the risk of throwing the creature out of his train, I interrupted. "How could you write a letter up yonder?" "The letter? Oh, the letter. Keep looking at me between the eyes, please. It was a string talk letter that we'd learnt the way of it from a blind beggar in the Punjab." I remember that there once had come to the office a blind man with a knotted twig and a piece of string which he wound round the twig according to some cipher of his own. He could, after the lapse of days or hours, repeat the sentence which he had reeled up. He had reduced the alphabet to 11 primitive sounds and tried to teach me his method, but I could not understand. "I sent that letter to Dravot," said Carnehan, "and told him to come back because this kingdom was growing too big for me to handle, and then I struck for the first valley to see how the priests were working. They called the village we took along with the chief Bashkai, and the first village we took Erheb. The priests at Erheb was doing all right, but they had a lot of pending cases about land to show me, and some men from another village had been firing arrows at night. I went out and looked for that village and fired 4 rounds at it from 1,000 yards. That used all the cartridges I cared to spend, and I waited for Dravot, who had been away 2 or 3 months, and I kept my people quiet. One morning I heard the devil's own noise of drums and horns, and Dan Dravot marches down the hill with his army and a tail of hundreds of men, and, which was the most amazing, a great gold crown on his head. 'My God, Carnan,' says Daniel, 'this is a tremendous business, and we've got the whole country as far as it's worth having. I am the son of Alexander by Queen Semiramis, and you're my younger brother and a god too. It's the biggest thing we've ever seen. I've been marching and fighting for 6 weeks with the army, and every footy little village for 50 miles has come in rejoiceful. And more than that, I've got the key of the whole show, as you'll see, and I've got a crown for you.' I told them to make 2 of them at a place called Shoe, where the gold lies in the rock like suet in mutton. Gold I've seen, and turquoise I've kicked out of the cliffs, and there's garnets in the sands of the river, and here's a chunk of amber that a man brought me. Call up all the priests and here, take your crown." One of the men opens a black hair bag, and I slips the crown on. It was too small and too heavy, but I wore it for the glory. Hammered gold it was, 5 pounds weight, like a hoop of a barrel. "Peachy," says Dravot, "we don't want to fight no more. The craft's the trick, so help me." And he brings forward that same chief that I left at Bashkai. Billy Fish we called him afterward, because he was so like Billy Fish that drove the big tank engine at Match on the Bolan in the old days. "Shake hands with him," says Dravot, and I shook hands and nearly dropped, for Billy Fish gave me the grip. I said nothing, but tried him with the fellow craft grip. He answers all right, and I tried the master's grip, but that was a slip. "Fellow craft he is," I said to Dan. "Does he know the word?" "He does," says Dan, "and all the priests know. It's a miracle. The chiefs and the priests can work a fellow craft lodge in a way that's very like ours, and they've cut the marks on the rock, but they don't know the 3rd degree, and they've come to find out. It's Gord's truth. I've known these long years that the Afghans knew up to the fellow craft degree, but this is a miracle. A god and a grand master of the craft am I, and a lodge in the 3rd degree I will open, and will raise the head priests and the chiefs of the villages. It's against all the law," I says, "holding a lodge without warrant from anyone, and you know we never held office in any lodge." "It's a master stroke of policy," says Dravot. "It means running the country as easy as a 4-wheeled bogie on a downgrade. We can't stop to inquire now, or they'll turn against us. I've 40 chiefs at my heel, and passed and raised according to their merit they shall be. Billet these men on the villages, and see that we run up a lodge of some kind. The Temple of Imbra will do for a lodge room. The women must make aprons as you show them. I'll hold a levee of chiefs tonight and lodge tomorrow." I was fair run off my legs, but I wasn't such a fool as not to see what a pull this craft business gave us. I showed the priests' families how to make aprons of the degrees, but for Dravot's apron the blue border and marks was made out of turquoise lumps on white hide, not cloth. We took a great square stone in the temple for the master's chair, and little stones for the officers' chairs, and painted the black pavement with white squares, and did what we could to make things regular. At the levee, which was held that night on the hillside with big bonfires, Dravot gives out that him and me were gods and sons of Alexander, and past grand masters in the craft, and was come to make Kafiristan a country where every man should eat in peace and drink in quiet, and specially obey us. Then the chiefs come round to shake hands, and they were so hairy and white and fair it was just shaking hands with old friends. We gave them names according as they was like men we'd known in India: Billy Fish, Ollie Dilworth, Picky Kurgan that was Bazaar Master when I was at Moe, and so on and so on. The most amazing miracles was at lodge next night. One of the old priests was watching us continuous, and I felt uneasy, for I knew we'd have to fudge the ritual, and I didn't know what the men knew.